Somebody's all about the good news. He's all about hope and communicating the message of the gospel in ways which engage with people, particularly, I suppose, people who aren't necessarily from a Christian or a faith background. That is the philosophy behind a brand new series of foundational studies called Why Christians Believe Christianity to be True. From the Shining Lights Trust, Dave Mann joins us once again. Dave, kia ora. Nice to see you, sir.
Kia ora, Andrew. Being all about the good news, I like that introduction.
Exactly. You're so much more than just the hope guy, Dave. You know, and hey, this is the good news of the gospel. This is why we do what we do, both in terms of the work of your ministry and also, of course, here at Rhema. But communicating those ideas to people who don't have a faith background, that's a little bit complicated. So this the 7-part series that you and the team have developed, unpacking a lot of important issues as to why is it? What are the foundation stones that you have built your faith and your beliefs on? Now, we've been going through these over the last few weeks. A lot of fun yesterday talking prophecy in the Old Testament and some of the statistical improbabilities of all of the prophecies about Jesus being true of one person. I mean, give us a bit of a refresh on that, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just going by memory here, but if just 8 predictions were accurate, you know, you're 1 over 10 to the power of 15. If you went for about 40 predictions being accurate, I think it's 1 over 10 to the power of 158. And just for a comparison, there's only about 10 to the power of 80 atoms, not just in the entire known universe.
Wow.
And so the chances that a person can predict accurately, and the craziness of biblical prophecy is that it all has to be true.
Yeah.
So if there's 150 or 300 predictions about Jesus, he can't just fulfill 5 or 10 of them and you go, he's the Messiah. He's got to plausibly fulfill them all. And what's absolutely incredible about biblical prophecy is this amazing track record when you study it.
Yeah, it would have been easier statistically if there was only 2 or 3 things that needed to be fulfilled. I mean, but actually the Old Testament, of course, is full of them. Now, we won't sort of go back into all of those, but certainly encourage people to go to whychristiansbelieve.nz. There's resources online. You can get into that there and hey, start a series with a group from your community, perhaps. But wanting to pick up on this, because this is an interactive series. Yes, there's going to be the videos and the booklets, but people got to come with their own questions and preconceived ideas. How's this one for you, Dave? I mean, there's other prophecy. I mean, Nostradamus. I mean, he predicted Hitler. Spelled it slightly wrong, but he's an example of a prophet that's, well, almost as accurate as the Bible.
Well, I've just had to pull up on my screen here some of the information to give you on it. But yeah, Nostradamus wrote, I think it's lay propheties, you know, the prophecies.
Yep.
And he's quite famous for having done so. But it's generally commented that the fulfillments of these are sort of more like it's in the eye of the beholder.
Okay.
In other words, you've got to use your imagination. And the other thing that's pretty clear about him is he predicted lots of things that didn't actually come true. And it's the short-term predictions that give credibility to a prophet for their long-term. Okay. So this is how guys like Jeremiah and Isaiah and Ezekiel became trusted in the Bible. The short-term gave credibility to the long-term. Just for interest, Nostradamus predicted that in 1792, Venice, Italy would be a great influencer in the world, which hasn't happened.
Yeah.
That the Catholic clergy in 1609 would all fall down, which hasn't happened. That astrologers would be persecuted in the year 1607, which never happened, and that by 1700 China would have subdued the whole northern section of the world. And so you've got a man who writes lots of things in poetic language, but actual specifics are a lot harder to come by than thought. And the other, just to throw it out, is that if you jump through, like they've done studies, for example, you know, on astrologers and on psychics, they've worked out that there's a 6 to 8% accuracy rate. So, for example, I predict that you're going to have a coffee later today. You know, at this point with one prediction, hopefully, Andrew, I'm a prophet.
No,
but you know, that's just.
I'm not a coffee man, Dave. Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
So,
oh yeah. Even there, I'm failed.
Wow, exactly. Now, with those sort of things, because it's interesting, because yes, popes have fallen. Yes, Venice did have its season in the sun. Hey, perhaps the China thing is yet to happen. But when you put specific dates next to it, that just makes it a little bit trickier. And if you're wanting to be a prophet, perhaps get less specific. However, in the book of Daniel chapter 9, now Daniel did amazing things, and some people have said, well, you know, Daniel predicted Alexander the Great. although he didn't say specifically what year Alexander the Great would conquer the known world at the time, but he was very specific about when the Messiah would arrive. I mean, just down to months, really.
On Alexander the Great, first of all, that's in Daniel chapter 11.
Yep.
And what Daniel does in that prediction is he gives around about 20 verses to giving the succession of this king will come, he'll do this will come and do this. And Alexander the Great is correctly in the succession where he should be.
Yes.
The purpose being to take you to a man, Antiochus Epiphanes, who is like the man of sin.
Yeah.
Who actually gets 14 verses, who creates the prototype for the Antichrist in the end times, which is in the following verses. So while the year isn't given the exact sequences and it's accurate to history, which is remarkable. But yeah, on Jesus, I think it's one of the most remarkable predictions in the whole Bible. In chapter 9 of Daniel, it says that from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the anointed one, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens.
Okay.
To keep it really brief, that's 483 years. So you look for, when did the issue come to rebuild the city of Jerusalem and the temple? And you've actually got two options for that date, and they're about 6 to 8 years apart. One of them was in 444 BC, when King Artaxerxes gave Nehemiah permission to return and rebuild the city of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And the other would be just a few years after that, when Ezra was given a similar instruction.
Just to put this in context, both of these dates are in the future from when Daniel was writing. So he didn't even know the start time.
He predicts an event which happened about 100 years after his death.
Yep.
Miracle is it then takes you across nearly 500 years of time to take you to no other but Jesus. Now, for honesty's sake, I'm only going to claim what I can prove. Yep. I can't prove whether it was supposed to be Nehemiah or Ezra as a starting point. And some say a year in prophecy is 360 days instead of 365 and a quarter.
Okay. Yeah.
But to give you the 4 dates that you land upon, you're either in AD 20, AD 26, AD 33, or beginning of AD 38. In all cases, across a span of 500 years, starting 100 years after Daniel, it's taken you to Jesus on the calendar.
Yeah.
And he is the anointed one who it predicts will come when there's a Jerusalem temple in a city rebuilt in times of trouble, after which the city and the temple get destroyed, AD 70, and the anointed one gets cut off or killed, which of course happened to Jesus. So it's a time prediction spanning 580 years that takes you to Jesus. Just phenomenal.
That is absolutely fantastic. Now, I know some commentators say, well, gosh, this is so accurate, it must have been written afterwards, but it certainly wasn't written after the fall of Jerusalem. We know that much. The other question people may be throwing to you, though, is, so what? So what does this prove? So, okay, yes, the Bible is accurate about events that have happened in the past. How and why does this affect me? What do we do with this, Dave?
Well, it shows that the Bible's not only known to be historically accurate, it evidences firstly that there's the divine hand of God behind this book in a way that doesn't exist for any other book. Secondly, it evidences to us that God's actually standing outside of time and history. So when God says, for example, that good will eventually triumph evil, I'm going to stop all evil and suffering, that this gives us a basis to trust him on. But it also, I think, just shows that the Bible is the most amazing book that we should pay attention to. You do not find predictions, anything like this, in any other religious literature. It simply doesn't exist. It's unique to the Bible. And so any person who's feeling like a skeptic could jump into the series, look at booklet 3, video 3, have a look at the details, the miracle that's happened. It's an evidence to say we really need to look at what the Bible says. In particular, the predictions point significantly to one person, and that is Jesus.
Yeah.
And so it's got to beg the question, who then was Jesus? If you've got miraculously filled predictions in his life, evidentially made hundreds of years prior, what does that actually say about him? Who was he?
Yeah, and hey, we'll save that for another time. That's the next booklet in the series, just as Daniel 9 points to Jesus. So, of course, it does the series Why Christians Believe Christianity to be True, available at whychristiansbelieve.nz. And hey, really enjoying our korero together, but looking forward to jumping into the series with some friends from my community as well. Dave, thank you for the work you do. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, cheers, Andrew.